All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October 30th, 2025 Audit Committee for the Chatham County Public School System. I will call the meeting to order. One opening remark, I'd like to welcome Mark Connery to the team. He's a new member of our now fully staffed audit department, so welcome, Mark. Also, one thing, where there is a conflict for our board members and our superintendent, so I would like to ask that a motion be made to approve the agenda with the reversal of the order of the audits. We will do contract management, purchase cards, and then grading practices to make sure folks can get out on time.
So moved.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda with the modification of contract management, grading, purchase card practices, and then grading practices. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. So we'll start with the audit of contract management, please.
Good morning. How is everyone? I will be presenting the audit of contract management, and then we'll start first with the objectives. We had two objectives for this audit. The first one was to identify whether the district contract management practices complies with federal, state, and local laws and procedures. And the second objective was to assess the effectiveness and efficiency of the district contract management program. This audit was requested by management in a previous fiscal year. Just a little background of the purchasing department. Contracts are managed by the purchasing department, and we did ask the purchasing department just for a total number of contracts processed every year. And in fiscal year 2022, they processed 441 contracts. 2023 was 732 contracts, and 2024 was 689 contracts. Okay, for the summary of results, based on the audit results, the audit received an overall rating of unsatisfactory. Deficiencies were identified in the following areas: approval processes and compliance oversight, contract storage, tracking and system implementation, and monitoring outputs and staff training. Okay, and then we'll move on to the observation one was approval processes and compliance oversight. Current department practices require contracts to be presented to the board 30 days prior to the date of the signed contract. And we did review 30 contracts for this test, and 67 lacked documented board approval at least 30 days prior to the date of the signed contract. We also looked at vendor performances, evaluation forms. We did only look at 30 vendors, and of those 30 vendors, 14 of them did not have a current vendor performance evaluation form on file. These forms are used as a tool to make sure vendors are meeting the contract obligations. And lastly, for this test, we looked at the certificate of insurance to make sure that the vendors have an active insurance certificates on file. We did look at 30 vendors, and 15 of these 30 vendors did not have the insurance certificate was either expired or missing when we asked for them. The department does require tracking of the certificates of insurance to protect the district from liability exposure. Any questions for the first?
Any questions from the board?
I don't have questions on the report at this time. Thank you for the report. It's never great to get one that says unsatisfactory at the top of it. I was just, my request is, can we get, I was just looking, trying to find it. Can we get a copy of the org chart for this unit emailed to us at another time? Okay, thank you. Great job.
Are there any other questions? Okay, very quickly, when you say that there are expired certificates of insurance,
Well, we asked for the certificate of insurance for 30 vendors, so they either couldn't find it for 15 of them, or the ones they sent me was like outdated. So if the renewal was, if there was like a current contract for this year, the certificate may say 2023 or 2024, wasn't within like the renewal
Right.
timeframe.
And when did you do this audit?
I started in April, so, and I really didn't start my field work until, May, June. So that's
Okay,
when I started.
so it's October. Do we have those 15 certificates of insurance today?
Well, I haven't rechecked them since the
No,
initial.
I'm asking
testing.
the management. Who wants to take that one?
We have them today? Do we have them now? Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I had to check with the procurement director, though they are in place now.
So how many certificates of insurance for vendors are not in place right now?
That we would have to check. Since this audit, I believe we went back and went through all of them. I do have to remind everybody, we're trying to, well, we went through the process of automating our process. It was a manual process. We installed some software that would track insurance, expiration dates, and all of that. And we've been doing that the last 12 months. So going forward, we'll have a mechanism to track insurance, to send out notifications, not only to us, to vendors, and the users of the contracts. So we have something in place now to track those processes.
So if I understand you correctly, there are no unexpired certificates of insurance currently in the district?
I cannot give you that answer like 100%, but we have gone through the vendors' contracts that we have. So I don't want to give you an answer, and I'm not 1% sure. But we are still going through the processes as we upload items to the new software system, so we're checking them as we go through them.
Go ahead.
I have a general thought. Should we be awarding these vendors contracts if they don't have a VPE or COI? Because that should be like on our checklist before we even award these contracts, right?
Yes, they do have that before they start. They do.
So then they just go missing. They provide these contracts or these COIs and VPEs to us, and then we go to audit them, and now we just don't have them?
They're the ones that are, say, contracts that are beyond 1 year that we have to double check and make sure they renew their insurance, say, the following year.
Okay, so we
They're long-term vendors, put it that way.
So we initially obtain these, and then a year or two later, they're either expired or we can't find them.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I said, that was part of that manual process, and when you have 1,500, 2,000 active vendors, you know, it's a task.
Yes, ma'am.
So the automated system that you have in place for the past year, does it have alerts in it that will tell you if the insurance policy has expired? Or is it just a system that you put information in? Does it have?
It has
the-
alerts.
It has alerts.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
That
this
was the whole
is,
intent.
right now what you're doing is you're taking the old manual system, and for the past year, you've been putting it into this system, which now gives you alerts about what's missing.
Correct.
And who's in charge of, anyone who's assigned to the account sees the alert, or does just one manager see the alert? Can anybody who looks at that system see that the alert's in there?
All of the procurement staff, along with the vendors, we're in the process now of what we call vendor self-service, making sure the vendors get all their information into the system, so they would get alerts as well as far as the insurance.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions? I just don't think that this is an extreme risk that we're exposing the district to. And it's startling to think that we're operating without proper certificates of insurance. And then even more startling that we don't know that they're all in place today. So I hope we're correcting that in hours and days, not months.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Campbell?
I see on here too, in the official audit, the bonfire that has been, so how far are we along based on our A&M audit that also concurs with this audit? How far along are we on full implementation of bonfire that we've had now for a year?
As of now, staff is using it. We're in the process of pushing it out to the vendors to get their information, but staff is fully implemented with the staff.
And Munis, what's our time frame, and how does that work in conjunction with Bonfire?
That was part of the problem. I think I mentioned it to the board members. The Munis platform for procurement did not include a sufficient contract management platform. That's pretty much why we're kind of a couple of years behind now. We had to go out and find some other software to supplement Munis. So over the last basically 3 years, we did some research, met with other school districts, went to some Tyler conferences, and what we found out was majority of school districts that are on Munis, Tyler, do not use their contract management software. I'm willing to say probably 95% of them don't use the software, and they all recommended other platforms such as Bonfire. So with Bonfire, we did a couple of site visits. We had them come to Savannah to do a demonstration, and we did an RFP for the platform. So we're looking at, we're about 12 months into the implementation. Again, the staff is fully only using it, but there's a portion where we have to now involve the vendors. We have about 1,500 active vendors. We've loaded some of their information, but we're going to have to send letters out to them and train them how to keep their information updated in the platform and Bonfire. So we're hoping to do that before the end of this year, get that fully vested and up and going. Then it'll be a lot easier because the software will really do all of the tracking for us.
And I'm glad to hear that we are now implementing it, but when you say you've been working on this stuff for 12 months, getting it off the ground and going, and then I guess I want to reiterate Mr. Wood's point that when I read this audit and I see there's no plan in place to develop such metrics, and it's referencing formal KPIs, if there's insurance, I hope that everyone understands how very serious it is that we don't have these things. I hope there's a lot of urgency because this is really not good. Do we know about KPI timeframe for getting some of the stuff off the ground and when it'll be available to us?
We're in the process of that. We're going to work with Tyler to help us develop the type of KPIs we want to use, but we should have that in place also within the next couple of months.
Okay, and when did everyone have access to this audit? When did we know there were problems?
Again, the audit itself was a management request. We requested the audit because we thought we were going to have the software in place before they did the audit. So, but we didn't want to push back the audit. We moved forward with it. But the request came from the finance management to see where we were where we were going to be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Everett?
I'm just curious if there's a number you might not know, but I'm curious how much this potential lack of oversight has cost the district. Has there been any settlements or resolutions to any issues with lack of insurance?
Not at all.
Any other questions? So one follow-up. So I would assume that the certificate of insurance is a requirement in our contracts, right?
Correct.
Okay. So let's assume that, let's give the benefit of the doubt that of the 1,500 vendors, it's not 750 that don't have their certificate of insurance in place. But I bet I'm going to make an assumption that we're paying these people. So how are they getting paid if they're not in compliance with their contracts? Where is the fiduciary link to making a progress payment or a contract payment to someone who doesn't have a valid certificate of insurance? How is that happening? How are taxpayer dollars going out of our pocket to people who aren't complying with their contracts?
For most, I want to say probably for the active vendors, we do have should have a certificate of insurance in place for them. Some of these contracts are contracts that have lapsed, or not lapsed, but some probably completed, that where there was a check and the insurance certificate of insurance was not in place. But I feel certain that most of the ones that are active vendors now that we have a regular relationship with, we have a certificate insurance in place for them.
So payments are not being made to vendors who have invalid certificate insurance?
They should not be, not at this point, no, sir.
And let me interject here real quick. I think it's important to note that the certificate insurance, these certificates are typically last for a year. So you'll enter into the contract, you'll have the certificate of insurance that'll be expiring 8 months later, and the issue is not getting that updated renewal. In a large majority of these, and sets that system of bonfire that's supposed to alert and say, all right, the insurance, the certificate we have on hand, just like your auto insurance, has now expired. You need to update that insurance. And I think there's a gap in the fidelity of getting the vendor to update that. So you're not going to find the vendor in violation of the contract unless you are first reaching out to them and saying, update this insurance now because the one we have is expired. And I think that's not happening. I do say there's also some instances where we do not have that certificate because it could be a one-off individual that is coming on campus that doesn't even have a corporation or any entity, and they're giving a talk. And we don't say that that person has to have $1 million of insurance to come and present a talk. So there are some instances where there is a waiver of an insurance requirement for very few scenarios like that. But that might be something we need to hammer out from the policy side. But the large, almost all of these instances, the insurance is on the front end, and the issue is on not getting on the vendor to say, update your policy now that it's expired. And I think that's where the work needs to be done with the bonfire system and integrating that with the vendor being able to directly update their insurance through the system, which is an exciting feature of that. And when that process should be implemented as soon as possible, but that's going to really help with this housekeeping piece of insurance policies rolling out during the year term.
And also with the housekeeping piece, I do want to point out, over the last 12 months, it was during a period where we were probably operating at 50% of staff capacity in that department of about 10 people. We were down to about 5. So they were just doing the best they could to stay afloat. Over the last 3 or 4 months, we're fully staffed now. So they're going back doing a lot of cleanup that they didn't get a chance to do over the last 12 months.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So am I understanding that the initiation of a contract process is kind of a paper process?
Yes.
Okay.
Up until this year, it was a paper process for the last.
So you get it,
Forever.
so that is, this is still bad, but it sounds like part of the issue is you send out a solicitation, you apply, and it's a paper process.
Yes.
And this big archaic paper packet gets moved into the Borg, our system, and then it's supposed to be converted into a software object,
Yes.
which then Bonfire is supposed to notify you that you need to update.
Correct.
And additionally, consultants also are contractors, and many consultants, like when I was a consultant, I had liability insurance, but all of them don't necessarily have to carry liability insurance. So those are the waivers that you were talking about that some folks may not have. So this paper process, are we moving away from that? Because then the cross conversation between the application and the awarding of the contract, and then the double checking, like in procurement, before before a funds transfer is initiated, there could be a radio button that says, okay, compliance has been established, but we don't have that. We have big paper packet, we have the system, and then we have now a system that's reliant on electronic documentation that has not been fed into the system. So
The tickler effect now should be when you are entering the contract into Bonfire, that you should be listing the term of the certificate of insurance of when it's going to expire. So then that tickler is going to be automatically there and saying, oh, you need to follow up with this vendor. And that vendor should be getting direct alerts too. Update your insurance. You're on the system if you want to be inclined. So that should be happening as a matter of the operation of the software for that update. But yes, that will be entered. That should be entered into Bonfire at the time.
Yes.
So a policy component since we're on the policy side, could be you are responsible contractor for making sure that you have renewed paperwork at day 30 before your insurance expires. Since it's a way to do quality control. If we fail to make sure that our systems are updated, if we make it a contractual requirement that they are updated by some deadline before lapse, then we don't have to worry about Bonfire failing if they also are supposed to be
They will
doing
also
that.
get notified, yes.
Are we thinking about that in terms of our award requirements?
I believe we mentioned it in some discussions as we were sitting there with the trainers, but that is a good idea. We can make sure we update our contracts and just make a requirement that they update information when they get notifications.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you. And is there a checklist in the disbursement of funds? I don't remember. Like, is there another control in the procurement process, a checklist?
As far as the disbursements of funds on the back end, no, because when the vendors perform the work, we try to make sure we pay them. But we can,
How
like I said,
onerous
with a
would
new
that be?
system, ma'am.
Oh, Dennison is saying it'd be very onerous. Okay.
Yeah, if you put that on accounts payable to check every time to make sure all these different statuses were, they need to be fed that information from on the purchasing end. They would not be able to turn these payment requests around in time, and we have to negotiate constantly to get it stretched out to net 40. They always want it to be less, and it's everything we can do typically to get paid within a net 40 range with the current process. So I think if we had them checking on their end, we would really struggle to meet our payment timelines.
Okay. I'm not going to continue to talk on this. I know we have a lot to cover, but can someone share the link to the payment initiation process with us that we can see where that would occur? Like, in my other lives, in my other jobs, the initiator of the payment, there is a process that they have to check or confirm that I know this money is there, or I know this person has done the work. Like, there's something that the
Yes,
initiator
for the payable side, yes.
that starts that awareness that, okay, this work has been finished, or this person is compliant. Could someone share that?
Yes, we can get that
process?
to you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Moss?
So, the vendor performance evaluation, I guess I'm going to ask the same question that's been asked regarding the COI. Is that cleared up? Do we now have the VPE for the other vendors?
That is something we're working on with staff, because the vendor performance form is not completed by pretty much the finance staff. It's completed by the user of the contract. So we're trying to automate that process too. For example, if you wanted to hire a vendor to come do consulting work, it would be on your responsibility to fill out the vendor performance. The purchase and procurement departments just keeps records of them, and we use those records in future awards or decisions to award to a vendor, particular vendor, because we can use that as part of the criteria whether or not they're going to perform as they should. But we're automating that process as well to make sure that the end users complete the forms, and we have those forms on file. Going forward, all of that would be electronic as well.
Okay. So, and I don't want to belabor this. So the 67% of reviewed contracts lack documented board approval. How's that happening?
That is really, for instance, the contract that's in the language. Say, for instance, if we receive a contract from a vendor, they may have an award date of, say, September the 1st. The board may not, that's the award date on the contract, when they can start work. It may not go to the board until, say, maybe October. The vendor is not authorized or does not start work until a contract is signed. That may not be until November. So the award date on the contract is what they reference to the 67 contracts. But our vendors know they do not start work until they have a signed contract. Does that make sense? So really, the award date that's on the contract is kind of like irrelevant because vendors know they don't start work until they get a signed contract, if that makes sense.
I have a comment about that.
Yes.
Initially, I was going off of the contract date and then basing that on the board award date, but in the exit conference, they did explain that the contract, even though the date may say July 1st, the contract doesn't start until Mr. Jackson signed it, so I redid the test based on his signature and not the date of the contract. So that's the new updated number based on the signature of the contract, not the date.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
One more. Sometimes we do ratifications, and so the board, are you
That happens too.
resolving it with the board
Yes.
ratifications? Because we get lots of contracts where the work has started because there was a need. So how does that get fed back into the system? Is the evidence of board approval this ratified resolution that you then put into the packet?
Yes, the ratification, yes, that's also added to the contract package once board does the ratification as well.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Campbell?
Is there a way, this is great, the work that you did on this. I'm sure this was extremely time-consuming, but is there a way to do a post-implementation audit of this in a relatively reasonable time frame where we can then assess how well it's going?
I know, management response did give us, a date of June 2026, but we
Right.
can, if they want us to come back before then, we
Yeah.
can come and look at it before then to recheck. Because I don't think bonfire is gonna be fully implemented until June 2026 is what we was told. So we was gonna wait until then to recheck everything.
I'm really concerned about the seeming lack of, I guess, urgency. I mean, I'm a little worried about federal dollars that are coming in for grants, you know, making sure that we have, we're not doing expenditures above state thresholds, et cetera. I'm worried about a lot of this, so I'm hoping that maybe there is something that we can do just to assess some of these really high legal exposure issues where we know that it's on track prior to June, if possible. But I know you guys stay really busy, so just an idea, just
Yeah,
a
we'll get with
request.
management, and if they want us, just to kind of coordinate dates, and we can try to come out before then, before
Okay.
June 2026.
Thanks.
One closing comment on this objective. I heard words like tickler and housekeeping and system. This is not an excuse. You have put the district and the taxpayer at extreme risk. And you're talking about June of 2026? Making a payment in a non-compliant contract situation isn't housekeeping, sir. It's not, asking accounts payable to verify a payment should be made is not something that should exceed the capacity of an accounts payable department. Like, pick a verb, but to say this is unsettling as the taxpayer is shocking. So let's just get to the next one.
Okay, observation 2 was contract storage, tracking, and system implementation. The purchase department relies on multiple spreadsheets with no consistency. The purchasing department currently uses the click-on document management system to store approved contracts. This application should ensure a centralized access to contracts. We did look at 30 contracts within the click-on system. We did successfully find 27 of the contracts we looked at, but we did identify inconsistencies in the indexing when it comes to trying to locate contracts. Some contracts were only searchable by bid name, some we had to use RFPs, and then some we just had to use both. So it was really hard trying to locate contracts in the click-on system. It wasn't like consistent when it comes to like how to locate it. So we just had to kind of play around with it until it pops up. As part of our extended review, we examined 123 contracts scheduled to expire in May and June of 2025 to assess the completeness and the reliability of the department tracking spreadsheets. When we did this review, we revealed that the spreadsheets had a lot of missing fields. It was vague comments and a lot of outdated comments, given that the current practice for the department requires updates to the spreadsheet twice a week. Okay. And then a centralized contract management system can help consolidate contract information, streamline oversight, and improve data accuracy throughout the contract life cycle. And that's where Bonfire did come in. We didn't really test Bonfire because at the time of our audit, they're only using it for the RFP process. They did start training when it comes to the contract management module, but as far as anything else, we didn't test it because it's not utilized for contract management. This was purchased in 2024 for $73,280, and then the contract part was $9,500, but we're still yet to use the full system for when it comes to contract management.
There you comments, Ms. Campbell.
Wouldn't it kind of make sense that we're reading this now and it's telling us that you're utilizing Bonfire, but not fully, that maybe you do a re-audit, you set up a 6-month duration to see if you fully are into Bonfire and do a re-audit to see if the same issues pop up using the system that's supposed to be integrated? Because to me, the results are kind of off if you're telling us that you're using Bonfire, but you hadn't fully implemented when you performed this audit. So I would think you would want to do a re-audit.
Yeah, we can get with management. We did ask them when Bonfire will be utilized for contract management, and they gave us the date of June 2026, but we can try to get with them to see like dates and try to come out once it's fully in use.
Yes, and we can certainly do that. Like I mentioned earlier, this is an audit that we requested, that management requested. And we were hoping to do it after the implementation. We thought we would have had it implemented by now, or had software in place by now, but we didn't. But we felt it was a good idea to move forward with the audit because it will help us during the implementations on things to make sure we have in place before we finish implementation with the vendor, if that makes sense. It gives us an opportunity to do some check and balances to make sure we're not missing anything and that we have everything in place that we should.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. But as I heard Attorney Owens' question, it didn't seem like a management response question. It seemed like a best audit practices question. So I think that's a senior director of audit question, is that when you make the observations that Attorney Owens just said, is it a standard practice to do the re-audit?
So as you know, the summary of reports, there is a follow-up to every management action. So at that point, that is when we can assess to what degree we do a follow-up. We can just do a verbal discussion looking at actions, or we can complete a full audit again, or we can do an assessment of in a shorter viewpoint. So yes, we will get to that point in time, and we can do that. So there will be discussions, and I think what Shauna's leading to is we have to wait for the system to be in full. I wouldn't want to go halfway in unless management wants us to do pulse checks along the way. We can do that for them, but in order to do a complete one, 360 on this, it would be best if the system was in full capacity and within a few months of full implementation for us to really go in to see the impact.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Underwood. So then that makes this a Dr. Watts question, and that is, the system is not up and running, which is part of a contributor to why this is a bad audit report. We can't re-audit because the system is still not up. So why is the system not up?
I can't really speak to why the system is not up, but what I will remind board members of is that we have a trusted partner with A&M that also made this a part of their review process. And coming before you in next month's board packet will be a request to have them to continue to partner with us to manage all of the financial transitions we need to make for improvement. So they will be the check and balance as we move through this process in an interim stage. They'll be supporting and ensuring that things are implemented with fidelity.
Thank you. That's helpful. I'm still seeing human capital management as a problem. Like, what, I know we don't have a system. I heard we don't have enough people. I'm glad to hear that that we'll have that level of support from A&M, but I'm still looking at who's supposed to push the button, who gets the notification, who converts the packet. There's still a human capital management part in here that I think, through what you just said, will get fixed. But I think it's still it's a systemic, it appears to be, from what we're receiving, a systemic issue for us, which does create a lot of waste. Because if you've got somebody around and they're supposed to plug in the widget, and the widget is not getting plugged in, but they're coming to work every day, and then we're having all of these cycle of consequences, then the level of, just looking at how we're doing things probably needs improvement beyond the scope of what A&M does. Thank you.
And we can work, oftentimes internal auditors work with external auditors, so we can work in collaboration with them and let them, do the work that they're being paid to do, and then we can go in behind as well to make sure. I mean, it's the timing, and the key is when the functions are in place and they are being executed, and then we can provide that feedback.
I mean, I get it, but I'm thinking, when I go to the dentist, the hygienist tells me you need to floss. And then the dentist comes in and says you need to floss. But ultimately, I'm at home getting ready for bed, and I have to decide that I'm going to floss. It's like all the people who are checking to make sure that I'm supposed to be flossing, they can keep notifying me, but I have to actually do it. And the part that has us actually do what we're supposed to do when we're supposed to do it, that's the magic piece that I think governance can contribute to fixing.
Dr. Robinson? Okay. Are there any other comments? Again, and we brought up A&M, I mean, their preliminary observation is significant risk in the procurement process. This is an unsatisfactory audit. So we have an internal and an external indicator. And June 2026 is, the general fund budget is $600 million. How much money are we going to spend between now and then again, we don't know where the money is going. We don't know if the contracts are being complied with. This lack of urgency is again, startling. So I hope that this gets addressed at the policy level to you elected leaders and to the district.
I would assure you there is some urgency to get everything in place. With all of the new staff that's on board, everyone has been trained. We put June 26th as a expectation date, but we're hoping to have it done within the next couple of months, fully up and going. The only, like I said, the final piece of it now is working with the vendors, getting a piece out there. My assistant CFO would like to make a few comments.
I wanted to just interject and to make sure that everyone understands, when the audit started, as they said, we requested it. Finance requested, because we know that there are some things that when we implemented Munis, we saw the holes in our process. Everything that Alvarez has shown, everything that auditing is showing, is stuff that we told them, because when we implemented Munis, we were short of staff. We saw that working with Tyler and then talking with other districts throughout the country, We saw the portions in the modules in Tyler that could not give us what we needed. So we saw that contract management did not work in Munis. We saw the problems we were having with purchasing cards and everything that the audit department is telling you that management requested. We saw that the processes needed to be better. So to give us a starting point, so when we start talking with other vendors about contract management platforms, we wanted to see where we were in our process so we could know how to fix and where our holes are. Now, what you're talking about with the contracts and everything, we get with legal on all of our contracts. So our contracts, we feel, are solid. It's the internal processes that we wanted to make sure that our systems could handle and that we were going to handle them appropriately. So when we say it's going to take months, it's because we're in the process of doing those implementations.
Thank you. So how much money do you think we will spend before we know that every certificate of insurance is valid?
How much money we're going to spend?
Yes, ma'am.
We pay our vendors for the work that they're doing. So all of our contracts are validated by legal before the vendors begin the work. So we feel comfortable in that process that we're paying our vendors and that our vendors are legally at a point where they can do work with the district because the attorneys have checked the contracts before we bring it to the board. So all of that's being done. It's the administrative stuff that's being done manually because we didn't have the contract managers or the purchasing agents all in place to be able to do everything. When we have emergencies, people come in saying, I need a contract today, so the contracts that they were working on had to be put aside because something else came in and took its place. So those are the types of things that we're looking for the systems to help us to handle administratively.
Well, I feel comfortable in saying, as far as like the certificates of insurance and so on, those things, because of where we are in the process, definitely within the next 30 days, that can be addressed and be accomplished.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? All right, thank you. Next observation, please.
Okay, and the last observation was monitoring outputs in the contract management and staff training. The department lacks a system to measure efficiency and effectiveness in contract management. Efficiency in contract management should be measured by tracking staff time dedicated to contracts activities, the number of contracts per staff member, turnover rates, and workflow blockage. During the audit, we could not identify how this was being tracked. And also, there's no KPIs put in place. And during the audit, when we asked, there was no plan to develop them. They did give us a management response with a date, so we do have an update to that. But this is what we got during the audit. There was no plan to develop them. We did interviews with admins, end users, directors, and those interviews indicate inconsistency with communication. We did find a lot of unclear timelines and poorly defined roles and responsibilities when it comes to contract management. There's also little to no formal training for staff involved in contract management, with reliance instead on informal guidance and communication. All three of these observations increase the risk of non-compliance with board procedures, reduce transparency, and weakens the district ability to ensure that contracts are approved, executed, and monitored consistently.
Are there any questions? Mr. Moss?
Do we have a dollar amount that represents these contracts?
Do you mean the ones that we reviewed? We can get those to you, yes.
That'd be great. That'd be great. One of our greatest responsibilities of our board is fiscal. First of all, thank you, internal audit. And to the public, be glad that we have an internal audit department. It is essential. And not every school board has one, but we do. And I want to commend you guys for great work. It may not fit the way we all would like it to fit, but you guys are doing a fantastic job. That being said, the amount of uncomfortability that we are experiencing, and I think I can speak for all of us, this is disturbing. And I'm going to agree with Chairman Woods. I would like to see more urgency with this. Whether it's human capital or whatever, this has got to get cleaned up. You know, this is beyond bad. I mean, I saw unsatisfactory. I don't know if there's a one that goes beyond unsatisfactory. Oh, what is it? Oh, yeah, unsatisfactory is our ultimate, but this can't happen anymore. So another question. You know what? I'm not going to ask any more questions because I don't think we're going to have time to get to our other. We got two more, and I don't think we're going to get to them. But public, please be aware that when we are made aware of these things, they will be addressed. And I think there are some tough conversations going to have to be had by our board. This is not just policy. This is behavior. And our taxpayers trust us to treat their money correctly and to do what is fiscally sound and legally sound. So thank you, Internal Audit.
Are there any other comments? Okay. At this point, that concludes your audit, correct?
I have the recommendations.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. So there's 3 recommendations to develop and implement the KPIs for the contract management system, to establish procedures and performance monitoring system, and then to fully implement the bonfire system. Initially talking to management, the dates for all 3 of these was June 2026, but as discussed, we'll revisit that to see if we can go in before that date. That's the end.
At this point, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the audit of contract management as presented.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the audit on contract management for submission to the Board of Education. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I would just, one caveat, I would ask the board members present to consider removing this audit from the consent agenda at your next meeting. I think this is worthy of its own attention. So thank you. And I know you guys have 11 minutes. Leah, go ahead. We'll get started. And
Okay, so the next audit is the audit of the procurement card practices. Again, part of the grouping of audits to review that was requested by the finance department was another one, was also the procurement cards. And actually, this was approved by y'all in fiscal of 2024, and this audit was a carryover, which it is now. The framework of our audit was scheduled in July 2023 and July of 2024, and most of the work was conducted by our intern. If you remember, we had our great intern here who graduated from Savannah State. And so we had to duplicate her work just to make sure things were done correctly, but we decided there was enough evidence here to support, and the controls still existed even a year later, that we could just use the information that she had conducted to complete this audit. So therefore, just a judgmental sample of 26 cardholders out of the 108 cardholders that had existed in fiscal 24 was selected for a total population. So that included 15 district management cardholders and 7 school site cardholders. And this included a total of 46 bank statements that we reviewed. And from that, there was only 161 transactions. So our sample size was really small. Accounts payable does not track the total number of transactions that occur in the purchase card, so we could not pull a statistical analysis of a population of the total population. So we just went with, with what we had based on what was provided. So we conducted interviews with Accounts Payables Department, reviewed their processes, as well as discussing their discipline practices within cardholders when they were out of compliance. The Accounts Payable Department is the district department that is tasked to not only train the employees in the processes, but also ensure compliance with the procurement card processes. So we conducted also an internal control questionnaire with school and district staff just to see as an end user. So our control tests were based on the guidance that were provided in the procurement card manual that is used in the training to the purchase card holder. And just so you know, for the last 3 years, the average amount of expenditures on our purchase card transactions was $1.8 million. So you have some context to not just in the previous years, but the last 3 years. So our key finding was that there's inadequate discipline controls to address noncompliance. So the procurement program lacks adequate enforcement mechanisms to address noncompliance. While the manual provides clear guidance on unauthorized purchases and misuse, it does not specify corrective actions for procedural noncompliance. Although no incidences of unauthorized use, I do want to disclose this, or card misuse was identified, our review revealed a significant level of noncompliance with established procedures. And this level of noncompliance, if left undressed, increases the risk of creating an environment in which misuse could occur. Overall, we reviewed 161 transactions for a total of 654 control tests, and we found 274 errors, which accommodate to 42% of noncompliance with established procedures. So our first control test was our bank statement and reconciliation. So we conducted this by reviewing the individual bank statements within the sample to ensure compliance with the billing cycle monetary limit and the signed signature requirement for bank statements as defined in the procurement card manual. What we found was 24 out of the 46 were not in compliance with the credit limit amount. I do want to highlight, we noted that the change to the credit limit occurred in July of 2024, and many of these bank statements were identified in that time period in which they would have made that change. But the communication was only to current management. It was not updated in the purchasing card manual. Therefore, we did not accept the email communication as sufficient evidence of the procedural amendment because they have to sign acknowledgement of that purchase card manual as acknowledgement of the rules in which how they are to use that purchase card. As for the signed signature on the bank statement, 34 out of the 46 were not in compliance with signing the bank statement, and I will own it myself. Cheryl Hoffman, as soon as I did that, pointed that out to me. Leah, we have not been signing the bank statement, so I will own non-compliance with that as well. All right, transaction level control tests. We did a segment of those. When it comes to cardholder identity, 85 of the 157 transactions we reviewed were made by somebody other than the cardholder. In addition, 27 transactions lack sufficient identifying information to determine the purchaser. So we couldn't see, based on the receipt, who actually made the purchase. The required, and just so you have some basis, usually it's the secretary using the card, and so for us, there's always a risk, but risk does not always have to be zero. So there just needs to be a process in place, and this is what we've recommended to management. You just have to acknowledge who's using the card. And the training that's involved does include the secretary. So we're comfortable the control is there. There just needs to be a formal acknowledgement of who's using the card in addition to the person who has the cardholder name. All right, of the required documentation, 26 of the 53 transactions were missing the additional required documentation to accompany the purchase card receipts in Munis. So there are some rules, depending on the type of transaction, that there's some additional documentation that needs to be included, and we could not find that in Munis. When it comes to allowable purchases, 28 of the 153 transactions were for items not allowed under purchase card rules. And just to let you know, these were typically food purchases that didn't meet the criteria. Food is allowed, but there is certain additional documentation that sometimes is needed, or the type of food, whether it's a meal versus a snack, couldn't be used by state law. It's just, it was not, the food purchases didn't align with that criteria. For the travel cost, for approval of purchases over 1,000, 10 of the 22 transactions lack that documentation. Again, the documentation in Munis wasn't there. Travel cost compliance, 15 of the 27 transactions were out of compliance. The travel documents were either not included in total or did not match the transaction total. So we couldn't reconcile the total of what was on the card to the supporting documentation. As for sales tax, 50 of the 150 transactions included sales tax totaling in the amount of $1,553, which only represented 4% of the total amount that we looked at, which was $41,462. And also we noticed some prohibited gratuity fees, including for a total of $295, and these fees were outside of the per diem allowance for gratuity fees. Just to let everybody know. So again, I want to remind everybody, these transactions occur prior. Okay, then AP can handle that. Okay, so while management indicated the daily, weekly, and monthly reviews are indicated, these measures were not sufficient. As you know, the transactions occur prior to there. So they actually monitor. We are comfortable with their monitoring processes. They are on key with that. They actually document, send emails, and they have that. They just don't track them. So internal audit agrees with their current monitoring practices are sufficient in identifying, but they're not adequate in effectively enforcing compliance. So our recommendations are designed to strengthen the discipline controls, and therefore we have recommended that they identify a tracking framework as well as a discipline framework, and their management action is included. Does anybody have any questions?
Are there any questions? All right. One question, Leah, you said you didn't find any incorrect purchases.
Right. We didn't see something that would alert us that there was misuse. You could always see there was an intent for a purpose towards something that was related to an educational system.
So
yes.
more sloppy, not fraud. Is that
Correct.
Is that we can
Correct.
go that way? Okay. Okay. Are there any other comments? I know you guys have to go, so we'll make a motion. I'll entertain a motion to adopt this audit.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept the audit of purchase card practices. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Not on this motion, but on additional items. We got this on Friday, and a lot of this we had a lot of discussion. Are we going to move to a model of getting the materials a week before the meeting? Because maybe some of this conversation could have been emails reacting to the content.
So you need it on Thursday?
That has been the request, to have
Okay.
it a week before the meeting, like
Okay.
we do.
We can shift to the Thursday. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And another admin comment about the slide packets. The slide packets will come as soon as they're done, but obviously the meat will come.
Yeah, the
on Thursday.
61-page reports, it would be good. I
Right.
mean,
The slides will come.
Yes.
These guys get the slides done sometimes just in time for the meeting, as
Thank you.
we all do.
We also need to approve the grading practices because we have not formally done
And
that.
I believe we're still going to have quorum even when the board members depart. So as long as the rest of us stay, we'll be able to accept that
Okay.
report. So, have fun at breakfast. Okay, Leah, go ahead. And just a reminder, Leah, I think on your last presentation, the slides didn't click through when you were talking. No problem.
Thank you. I forgot to push the button. I was more focused on,
No, I know. And I think
Getting it done.
the signal was your slides aren't going, but you were like, no, I'll just go faster.
oh, that was what your signal was.
So no
Sorry.
problem. No problem at all.
Sorry. Well, I
We're
will
doing a great job here today.
go slowly and
No
briefly
need to go
finish them.
slowly.
I'm so sorry about that. I was so focused on trying to get all that in. So there was an approval for the purchase guard practices,
Yes,
correct? That went
that's been
through?
approved.
Okay,
And
so now we need to approve the audit of grading practices.
this is a follow-up, right?
So it's not really a follow-up. We had already presented the report, just management action plan, hadn't completed. They were already in action of it, but they hadn't formally documented what they were going to be doing. And if you need Jack to come up here to go through that, and if you have any questions for Derek Butler here to address his actions of his team, just let me know what we need to do moving forward and what the audit committee members
Right.
would like.
Mr. Butler, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you all for the opportunity just to share a very brief update. We do intend to, at our next Academic Excellence Committee meeting, provide a comprehensive update around our response to the grading practices audit. I will just share very briefly that part of our work really will be about engaging several of our stakeholder groups, several of which we have already had an opportunity to engage and begin to generate feedback and insight to help shape our policy regulation revision, as well as grading practices guidance for schools. So excited to share that our students had an opportunity to provide some insight. We had an opportunity to engage our teacher professional senate. Next month, we intend, as part of parent engagement, to have an opportunity to engage several of our parent groups to get their insight and their experience around grading. So really our management action response is to engage stakeholder groups as part of our district's policy working group that includes several of our site-based teachers, leaders, as well as our district leaders who will help revise the policy and regulation. So just wanted to provide some details around that, but we'll provide a comprehensive update at our Academic Excellence Committee next month.
Okay. Are there any comments? I would just make two. One, I did, on behalf of some board members that just left, the minimum grade, that's obviously something to be debated, but we hope you give that a lot of thought, that we create this minimum grade of 60%. I think that's may not do us any good. And then as a parent, I would just say the primary data I get, my own, the information I get is, all parents get, not just me, but is the grades, right? So the fidelity in grading, that's my one KPI with our children. So if the grades aren't reflecting the knowledge, the parent can get a false sense of security. And I speak from personal experience.
Absolutely. And I'll just share this as well. While we will be looking at a number of things, obviously, that were noted in the audit, we have not limited ourselves to just the audit's recommendations because several themes have emerged from our initial conversations, and so I appreciate that. I will say that we will need to remain in alignment with state board rule regarding grading and what the passing score is, as that does have implications for promotion and retention. But we will be looking at all of the components related to that to help shape, to your point, the piece around communicating with our parents and our students around their progress towards learning.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I guess the concern that I had reading this part of is inconsistency from school to school. And there was one point that was made that teachers are not allowed to put zeros in the book. Is that a site decision, or is that aligned with state policy?
So there is no state policy language, to my knowledge, that speaks specifically to that. We have had some challenges with obviously the inconsistency, and that's due in large part to our policy does not specify that. And so because of that, schools have taken the liberty to put in place practices, that, again, we like to think are in the best interest of students, but also we recognize that sometimes those things differ across schools. And so part of what we will be doing and what we're currently doing in our policy working group is identifying some of those tension points and making sure that even if that language is not reflected in the policy and regulation, that we have some very clear administrative guidance to ensure that schools are able to be consistent in how we provide feedback and how we manage grade books across schools. I will say that some of the things that we've noted are related to PowerSchool, which is the student information system that we use. So we'll be working with them to make sure that the technical aspect is also not a barrier to sort of the grading that is entered into the system.
And my other comment is I am excited about the idea of engaging parents in this process, but I think the how would be my concern, and the who are we going to engage when we do that. So as we look at that, I think we got to find mechanisms or ways to ensure that we kind of tap into every type of parent that will have a clear understanding about the importance of this grading system.
Duly noted. And again, I'll reserve some of those updates for our Academic Excellence Committee meeting, but certainly receive that.
Mr. Evans.
You mentioned policy a while ago, and I'm just curious why there is no hard and fast rule that a policy regarding minimum grades or grades in general is not required to be in writing. Only one of the 8 teachers interviewed said that there was a written policy about minimum grades. So it just makes me uncomfortable that teachers are grading and it's subject to a wink, wink, nudge, nudge about minimum grades, or I just don't understand why we don't make a rule that any minimum grades should be written in policy for each school.
Yeah, and I think there's some nuances to that question that has come up. And what we have gleaned from our discussions is that that is related to a specific assignment. So if a student does not complete an assignment, what we've learned is that teachers may enter a grade of a 50 or 60 as a floor. And of course, there have been conversations, the board has had some of these conversations in some of our recent board meetings and board retreat. But the question is around, do you put a 0 in the grade book when a student does not complete an assignment, or do you put a 50 or 60, which is the same as failing an assignment? This is not necessarily about the final grade as much as it is about a specific assignment. There is obviously the grading numerical grades that exist in the policy, a 0 to 69, obviously the 70 to 79, that exists in the policy, but not the specifics around an assignment and what a teacher assigns for a student based on their completion or lack thereof of an assignment.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the last time we discussed this, there was a large percentage of teachers that said there was unwritten policy at their school saying that they could not give lower than a 50 or something like that for an assignment, even if the grade was truly lower or it was a 0 for non-completed work. And so I just don't understand, I guess, why it's not in writing within the schools if they're allowed to give a certain grade, or if the floor truly is a certain number. Why is it not in writing within the schools?
Yeah, and so to your point, I do think that there certainly could be some instances where that is not reflected in the school staff handbook, but I can assure you that there are some schools that have communicated that in their staff handbook. As a former principal, we provided very clear expectations around that in our staff handbook, which was not necessarily, well, it was in addition to the policy language. But certainly what we also learned is that there are teachers that are not familiar with the actual grading policy. And so we recognize that there's some education that needs to happen and some familiarization with the policy around that as well. Even though they may have access to it in their staff handbook, they may have access to it on the district website, there's just some familiarization around the policy and some education that we need to provide, particularly as part of our next steps for implementation and the change management that will take place with this.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Dr. Miller, I would just indicate as a victim, I mean, a customer of Power School, I would be happy to provide any input about Power School as a parent. Leah, we are at 9:11, so I would ask, first, can I get a motion to accept the audit of grading practices? Been properly moved and seconded that we accept the audit of grading practices. All in favor? All right. The audit is adopted. Leah, in the interest of time, do you think we could submit the informational items to the committee electronically?
They've already been submitted.
All right. Then our next meeting is December 11th. Thank you, everyone.
You need a motion to,
Motion to adjourn. December the 11th, correct. We are adjourned.